Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. How are we doing today? Inshallah, everyone's doing great. I know myself, I'm doing amazing because Ramadan's coming up. Yes, soon, very soon. We're going to have wonderful nights. With 10 more days left, I decided to look back to my last Ramadan, where it was probably the only Ramadan of my life where I actually did Ramadan properly, where I did everything I needed to do, and that be praying 5 times a day being the big one. So I was thinking back, how can I help someone that is going through their first Ramadan or like first proper Ramadan, and what are some good tips and things to focus on for that Ramadan? And today I'm going to be talking about 4 different things, so let's just get right into it. The first one and most obvious one is going to be, of course, your Salah. If you're not praying 5 times a day, you gotta pray 5 times a day. That's the bare minimum at this point. Everyone else is going to be doing it, so even if it's for the wrong reasons, you should start praying 5 times a day. The easiest way to get someone to pray, whether it be yourself or a friend, is to designate an area to pray. Make that area a likable environment. You're not going to want to pray in an environment where it's like, you're praying one day, you're praying in your room, one day you're praying in your mom's room, one day you're praying downstairs. Us as humans, we like to be comfortable. We like to be in a comfortable environment when we do something daily. Just think of like your work environment, when you go work on, maybe some of you work online, maybe some of you work at home, maybe some of you work at an office. For the most part, you're working in the same environment every day. It's familiar environment. You're doing it every day. Now, imagine if you were thrown into work into a whole different environment, thrown into a different store. It would throw off your whole game. This will help you ultimately with your focus in Salah. It's actually a really important aspect of Salah that not many people talk about. You could just do the actions of Salah, but at the end of the day, how focused are you in that Salah? How aware are you of Allah watching you right now? And I get asked this question all the time, especially on my lives. The biggest thing I use to help me focus on Salah is actually breathing exercises. So back then, before I used to pray, I used to practice meditation. Basically, allowing yourself to think thoughts, whatever they may be. If your brain is foggy, you're having random thoughts throughout the day, maybe you're thinking about what you're gonna do later on in that day. Allow yourself to think these thoughts, accept them, and then let them go. That's the whole essence of meditation. You could do that even in Salah with proper breathing. So what I do is, like, whenever I read a surah, whatever it may be, maybe Surah Al-Fatiha, we could try that. Whenever I read Surah Al-Fatiha, for example, between every ayah, I'll take a deep breath and breathe all that out. I breathe all those thoughts out. I'm telling you guys, don't knock it until you try it. Meditation might seem like this goofy thing, but look more into it. There's a lot of principles of Salah that people who meditate use on a daily basis without even realizing, and they're not even Muslim. Another thing you can also do is read different surahs. Try learning new surahs, try reading different ones in your Salah. Don't just read the same 2-4 surahs every single Salah. It's convenient, but it really, really does get mundane, and it's easy to lose your focus when you're doing that. Of course, there's no question you got to try to pray on time. Some people have work, some people can't get out of it, but I would advise maybe asking your boss or your teacher, hey, can I just step out of class for a second and go pray? I understand it might be intimidating to go pray in maybe a hallway. Take like a side room or something of the sort. I'm sure most people nowadays are respectful of it, especially in the time of Ramadan. They're more lenient with that stuff. Now, if you're a kid in high school, it might be a little different, but I'm sure with the right appeal, talking to the principal, you can get away with that as well. Another thing you want to do in your Salah is to make honest dua when you're in sujood. If you're not sure what sujood is, although we also know what sujood is, it's when you're on the ground with your knees on the ground, hands down, head to the floor, and basically you're bowing down to the one who created you. In this stance, this is the closest you are to Allah. So this is the time you want to make dua. More than anything else, this is the time you want to ask for forgiveness for all the sins you've done during the past year or even throughout your life. Anything that comes to mind, just make it. It's not uncommon for some people to sit 5-10 minutes in sujood, just in sujood for 5-10 minutes straight. That's a very normal thing. Just continue throwing out, Ya Allah, forgive me for this, for that, for this, for that. Throwing out different things. Ya Allah, please bless me with this. Ya Allah, please bless me with that. And if you want another thing to help you get into the habit of praying Salah, go to the masjid. It's not realistic that everyone's going to be able to go to the masjid for every Salah. But there are 2 Salahs where more often than not, you can at least go to one of these. Whether it be Fajr or Isha prayer. You're not going to be working 24 hours a day. So one or the other has to come. And if you could ideally do both, wake up for Fajr and go to the masjid for Taraweeh and Isha prayer, that would be great. But I understand, life gets in the way. But this is the month you want to commit the most. It's only 30 days and Ramadan only comes once a year. So if there was a time to start this habit, it would definitely be now. The second thing I wanted to address is, your relationship with the Quran. It's the words of Allah. It's basically a blueprint on how to live your life. I would recommend you buy 2 Qur'ans. You buy one that's Arabic, it doesn't really matter which one, in my opinion. And then you also buy an English translation of the Qur'an. The one I commonly suggest is the Clear Quran. I will link it in my description down below. This is just the one that I've used my whole life. I'm not sponsored. I think it's great, and it's great for people that don't understand Arabic and they need an English outlet to understand what they're reading. The true essence of Quran cannot be understood unless you're hearing it in Arabic. So what I used to do is ultimately when I'm driving or I set time aside to listen to Quran in, of course, Arabic, and then on my own free time I would read the same things that I heard, whether on my drive or on my free time. I would read the same things in English just to understand what I'm even listening to. Of course, we all want, ideally you would want to get the Quran done in the month of Ramadan. You know, you read one chapter a day. Everyone knows how that goes. But I do think like it's going to be a little difficult for some people. I know it was difficult for me, but there might be some of you that are super ambitious and really want to lock in this Ramadan, and more power to you. Inshallah khair. May Allah make it easy for you guys in that aspect. And the beautiful thing about Quran, it's one of those books that you will not understand everything at face value. You can't just skim through the words. It's not about the action itself. It's more so about what you're getting from it. Like, how focused are you on reading the Quran? It's the same thing in your Salah, you know? The value comes within how you spend that time. It's one of those things where you could read a line 4 or 5 different times and then you finally understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to tell you, or at least your interpretation of it. Understanding context is also very important with some of the surahs. You know, we see a lot of non-Muslims nowadays, they nitpick different ayahs from the Quran to make the Quran look bad, astaghfirullah. But this just isn't the case. Context does matter in all aspects. So if you're ever confused with something, I would definitely ask a scholar or a sheikh on the context of a certain ayah before you jump to conclusions. The third thing I want to address is how you spend your free time in terms of, you know, going out with friends, going out with family. We all know the saying, who you hang out with is who you become. The 5 people you hang out with, you're going to be the 6th one. And this applies to every stage of life, every time of life. But more so than ever, this applies to Ramadan. Look, listen guys, I have a lot of non-Muslim friends that are amazing people, but this is one of those months you really want to spend the most time with people who are on the same journey as you. Ramadan, you need to treat it like it's an exam that you're studying for. Ultimately speaking, when you're studying for an exam and your friends are hitting you up to go out or maybe go do whatever, you're not going to go out. You're going to continue studying for that exam. I would treat your Muslim friends as if they're studying for the same exam you are. They understand what you're going through right now, so they're going to be studying with you. That's how I look at it. That was the example I was given about how I can spend my time with my friends during Ramadan. Ultimately, you want to avoid night outings. You know, there are specific times in between salahs where you will have some free time. Even then, it's probably best to, I'm always going to encourage that you do acts of dhikr in those times. But, you know, for me, what I did last Ramadan, between Taraweeh prayer and Qiyam, there was always like a few hours where like you had a gap to really do whatever, you know, enjoy yourself, eat some food, go out with your friends, go out with your family. You just want to avoid places that aren't the best places to be. For example, like we all know, like the cafes, the night outings, you know, just try to avoid these things. I would really spend the most time with your family and the people you care about. And the final most important thing that you want to take away from Ramadan is going to be your akhlaq, your character, the character building, the self-improvement you're going to go through during this month. Now, as much as you're excited to get started, the ending should excite you just as much. You know, obviously it's sad when Ramadan ends, but coming out of Ramadan, you're going to be a completely different person if you do all the right things, if you just trust the process. This month should feel like a long journey. It should feel like every day is a grind. And when you're getting closer to the last days of Ramadan, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna start to reminisce on the journey and how, wow, we're still on day 7 of Ramadan, and before you know it, you blink and it's already day 20 of Ramadan. It flies by. It's slow and fast at the same time. And a month of purging bad sins, a month of being so hyper aware of what's going on, what's coming out of your mouth, the things you are doing, it will change you as a person. For the majority of life, we live life on autopilot, and I feel like the most underrated part of fasting is clearing that brain fog and allowing us to take back control of our lives. When you're so focused on the fact that you need food and water, it clears your brain. It allows you to be more hyper aware. Once Ramadan started and I was fasting, these habits, just like whenever I thought about like reflexively saying these things, I started to realize like, why am I just cursing randomly? Or why am I doing X? Why am I doing Y? Whatever it may be. You start to become aware of these things when normally you wouldn't be. And then it makes you start to love yourself. You know, you realize you are not your habits. You're just roaming on autopilot. The habits that you're doing for so long is not you. And subhanAllah, this is another rahmah from Allah. In the month of Ramadan, this is what it brings to the human heart. And it's here to clean our hearts. It's here to cleanse our hearts. Alhamdulillah. At the end of the day, your Ramadan is going to be what you make of it. However you spend your time during Ramadan, you're going to see the results after the fact. And before you know it, Ramadan will be over. Just how we're anticipating Ramadan now, it'll be over right before you know it, and we'll be waiting for the next Ramadan. So really take advantage of these 30 days and allow it to not only change the rest of your year, change the rest of your life. Don't take it for granted. Try your absolute hardest, and I really do believe in you guys. May Allah make Ramadan a blessed month for all of us, and I really hope Allah makes it easy for you guys. Ameen. And I wish you guys the best of luck, and I will see you guys on the next one. Assalam.